Well, hi there, folks. This is another episode in in my podcast series. It's the Words that Sell podcast series. But the topic that we've chosen for the next 5 or 6 episodes is on thought leadership. And I've got a terrific guest for you today in the form of Susan Trivers, who hails from Virginia. Virginia, hi, Susan. How are you?
I'm well, Kim. How are you?
I'm great. I'm terrific, and was I already I met Susan a year or two ago, and we did a call. We kind of hit it off, and we've been following each other's posts and commenting from time to time as well on LinkedIn. So it's a great way to learn about other people, their businesses, their ideas, their journey, all the rest of it. So if anybody who's watching this episode, if you're not active on LinkedIn, for goodness sakes, get started. Be fantastic for you, I'm sure.
Right.
Okay, now we're going to do a little interview here with Susan. We're going to learn more about her journey, how she got to the point that she's at now. But before I do that, I'm just going to cover a few points from Susan's bio. So let me just get this ready. All right, now, for years, Susan believed she was only good at the humanities, and she got restless in that field and enrolled for an MBA. She was surprised to discover that she loved economics and finance. Who would have thought? And because not everybody is really aligned with those topics, but she loved it and she's very good at it. After receiving her MBA, she taught finance and economics as an adjunct professor for 5 years. How about that? Susan thought she'd try working for others, but 3 jobs and 3 separations later, she knew her calling was business ownership. She wanted to be in control. So she owned a small local cafe, which gave her a whole new education: what to sell, how to attract your market, and how to make money. Most important, that last one. So Susan sold it for a small profit and has been a consultant ever since. She learned a lot from that exercise, from that venture, and now she helps other people. The specialty is professional and business service firms with revenue between $1 million, $10 million. These firms have many opportunities and there's no room for mistakes if the owners want to create a business that provides a good living and builds value. Susan helps owners adopt the principle that they should get paid for the life-changing differences they deliver to their clients. Because we know that many business owners, particularly service-based business owners, are undercharging for their services. She coined the name impact-based pricing to describe this pricing model. All right, so that's enough of the formalities. Let's kick off now. Just get back to a little studio here. And let me kick off with a question. All right, now Susan, read the little bio there with good stuff. Just one little thing there. You originally you were in the humanities. Can you just clarify that a little bit?
Sure. I think of the humanities as English, history, political science, sociology. I was actually majored in sociology and political science as an undergraduate. And then, everything related to that, writing and philosophy and everything. And, that was good. My first couple of jobs took advantage of my interest in people from a humanistic point of view.
Yes.
So that's what I mean by humanities. But I'll say this for our audience. I never took a statistics course, a math course, or any kind of quantitative courses in my whole undergraduate work. So that's how much I was not into finance and economics.
Wow. Wow. So what, uh, what was the attraction of doing the MBA? Because that required a shift, didn't it? A mind shift.
Yeah. So, to be honest, at the time I was not working and I was trying to be busy and, how many games of bridge can you play? And so I decided that I would I would go to school for, I would get an MBA, or I would look into enrolling for an MBA program. And it turned out that I needed to take a number of undergraduate courses before I could go into graduate school because like I said, I had no business type courses or quantitative courses in my undergraduate work. So I made this decision. I think that our audience will get a kick out of this. I decided to do the things that I was most worried about first, figuring that if I failed, I wouldn't have wasted all my time on the other stuff. So I took accounting and I took statistics as an undergraduate courses. I was the only person, in my late 20s with a whole bunch of 19-year-olds. And lo and behold, I excelled. I understood what was happening and the philosophy, the principles behind these, accounting and statistics made sense to me. And so it wasn't about the numbers, it was about why you cared about the numbers that really clicked for me. So then I finished the rest of the required undergraduate courses and I enrolled for my MBA, and I took, all the different management and operations and marketing and stuff, but I was really in love with finance and economics. So.
Wow. And so from there, you wanted to apply some of what you learned into a real life situation, namely a small business.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So yeah, just talk a little bit about that.
Well, so I said I had decided I'd try working for somebody, and I had 3 jobs, which over time were not a good fit, we can say. And so then I thought, it's on me. I have to figure out how to make a living. And I decided that this is actually very funny to me. I'm like, I love to cook, so I'll just buy a little cafe or I'll open a little restaurant. And it wasn't until I was in the kitchen that I realized that a cafe or any food service is really not about the food. It's about everything else. And the food is sort of a secondary thing. I don't mean that you can be careless about the food, but when you have to organize your space, you have to keep it clean, you have to deal with your customers, you have to market, you have to know how to price, you have to have a variety that those customers want. Doesn't matter what you like to cook. So it was quite challenging to learn all those things while I was actually working in the business. I was very determined. I had a couple of early employees who were extremely loyal to me and made a big difference in how we got the food out and served our customers. And so after about 18 months, I felt like I was in a groove. And then I could really concentrate on improving things, not just, opening the door every day.
Yeah.
But you learn more about people in a little business like that than I think in any business. I would often be the person at the cash register checking people out. So I learned how to talk to customers. Talking to customers is the number one thing, as you talk about already. And you talk to customers, you figure out what can you say to a stranger? What can you say to someone that you see every single day? And the whole thing in between. So it was a great learning experience, and I was very happy to be able to help my employees get better jobs. Once I sold the business, they wanted to branch out into non-food service, and they all did. So I feel very good about the whole time that I had the cafe.
Yeah. Yeah, great. So what prompted you to sell the business?
That was too hard.
Long
I mean,
hours?
you're on your feet all the time, and it's many hours, and it's, as anybody who's been in any kind of food-related business knows, the margins are extremely thin. And, if it's middle of winter and you have a salad bar, your customers expect to have tomatoes. But in those days, this was in the middle 90s, tomatoes were extremely expensive in the winter. And so, but I didn't have any control over that. So it was a very hard business. I'm glad that I did it. and I was ready to be done with it.
Yeah. So during that ownership period, uh, did you formulate your impact pricing model, if you like, during
Oh,
that period or subsequent?
no, that was a long time after. So when I sold a restaurant, I asked myself, what do I have to offer to other business owners from this experience? And I'll say this, I've always been about making money. And we have to make money. We can't be shy about saying we want to make money. And by making money, I mean money enough for the owner to live comfortably on. Okay, so I've never shied away from saying that's my goal. I want to be able to have a life that I like by my own work. Okay, so I was all about making money, but I started by saying, well, the thing that I learned the most from the cafe was customer service. So I began coaching other businesses on customer service and speaking to organizations about customer service. And eventually that built into, well, customer service is really important. You need all the things to back it up. And so over about a decade, I sort of traveled a path from backwards, from customer service to what do you sell, to how you market, how you define your target market, and other things like that, so that they were all focused on making money, but they were elements that every business needs in order to make money. So I sort of started at the end, which is customer service, and moved backwards to the essence of a company. And so that's what I was doing in around 2010. And that's what I was doing in about 2010. And in 2010, I looked at my life, and here's what I saw. On one hand, I saw a large stack of soon to be mailed invoices. And on the other hand, I saw a due now stack of bills. DUE, pay now stack of bills. And I said, this cannot go on any longer. I was struggling to pay my bills even though I had plenty of business, but the cash was never coming in. And so I had to decide to do something about it. I wasn't going to live like that anymore. And so maybe I'll stop here and we can pick this up if you have any other questions or things that you want me to.
No, keep going because this is
Oh,
important.
okay.
This is
All right.
like
Yes.
you're building a bridge.
Yes. So here's my point for our listeners. I had business. I had customers. I had revenue, and I had no money. Why? Because I was charging by the hour for my consulting and coaching, and having to charge when you charge by the hour, you invoice in arrears. You've already done the work, and then you write an invoice. Then you mail the invoice, and then the customer has 30 or more days to pay. So the work has been done, and you don't get any money for 30, 60 days. You can't live like that because your credit card bills and your electric bill and your phone bill are due now. So I said, I have to do something about this. And I studied different experts on pricing. And I think at the time, value-based pricing was becoming more known. I knew someone who had written a book about value-based pricing, but I had sort of put it to the background. So I started to look into that. And so let's stop for a second. The concept of value-based pricing is that you, the provider, whether you're an attorney or a web designer or an architect or a writer or a coach or consultant of any kind, is going to charge your customers a fee that's related to the value you provide them. That's value-based pricing. The contrast is pricing based on the company's expenses with a profit addition. So those kinds of prices are about your company, how much money you must make to cover your expenses plus some profit, and it's all about you. Value-based pricing, the essential point of it is it's about what the customer gets from your work. So, so that really resonated with me. I was changing people's businesses all the time and I was getting paid for that. The problem was how to get paid and how to get paid early or in the beginning. So I decided it was so clear to me a day in 2010. I made a note to myself, value-based pricing from now on. And I put it up in front of where I answer my phone. And not an hour later, I got a call from someone who'd been referred to me by a previous client. And we talked and we hit it off really well. And at the end, he said, so how do we pay you? And I looked at my sign, at my note, and I said, well, I charge for the value that I deliver to you. I'll send you a proposal tomorrow. And he said, and I'm holding my breath. And he said, that'll be great. And that was it. So I have never since charged by the hour. And yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the value-based pricing model, that then you move to another level with your impact pricing
Yes.
concept.
Yes.
So how did you do that?
I will absolutely be happy to talk about that. So value-based pricing was really working for me. It made my clients happy because they felt like they knew what they were getting. And it made me happy because I was getting paid in advance. A key part of value-based pricing, there's two. You know the fee in advance or the price in advance before you start, and you expect clients to pay for it in advance. So there's none of this invoicing in arrears and then waiting 60 days to get paid. So those are two huge benefits of value-based pricing. The fixed fee, which they know, you know, and the timing of the payments. So I was doing that for a long time. It was working really well. And in about 2018, I began to get some objections. And I was a little surprised because, it'd been working so well. So I started to make a note of the objections I was getting, and I realized there were three problems with value-based pricing. Number one, any number, no matter what it is, whether you're talking about increasing sales or decreasing costs or increasing profit, whatever the number is that you propose as the value that you're going to provide to the client, no one has the same understanding of what that number means. So you can say to someone, I'm going to increase your revenue or help you increase your revenue by $300,000. And one person says, oh, that's fantastic. And the other person says, that's nothing. $300,000 does not mean the same to every person. And whatever the number is, $1 million, $5, doesn't mean the same to every person. But value-based pricing was dependent on a number in most cases. So that was one problem. There was way too much variety in what people attributed to any number. The second problem was that value itself, I like to say, had been devalued. People started to think that a value-based price was a good deal or a bargain. And so they started to get uncomfortable or resistant when you said whatever it was you offered, and they're like, well, I thought you were going to give me a deal, a bargain. That was never the intent. And somehow over the years, we all have to deal with the environment that we're in, and value became this, like good deal. And the third thing is that most practitioners of value-based pricing aim for a quantitative outcome. They calculate a number, whatever the variable is, revenue, expenses, profit, turnover, whatever it is, calculate a number. And then they say, this is what I'm going to work towards. But I realized, and this was my own problem too, I had run into it a few times, although it hadn't struck me as a big problem, but it began to, is that we can't know everything that's going on in a client firm until we're in it. And there may be things built into that firm that make that targeting that number like very hard to achieve. So you say, I'm going to deliver X number, then you get into the company and you find out you can't do it because they're not set up for that. But you've already quoted a price and a scope that doesn't allow you to actually reach the number. So those are the three reasons why I got resistance from the first one. Everybody thinks that any number is a different value. And the last one was my own resistance. I'm running into trouble here, I know. So again, like I did in 2010, I said, I got to stop and I've got to think about this and make a change, because value-based pricing, which had been great for me, was not working as well anymore. So that's when it was another target, another transition point. So I started to think about what it was that I was doing as a consultant. And I consult with companies on making more money and in a variety of ways. I think, okay, I'll talk about that in a second, in a variety of ways. And I said, well, what does it mean to them to make more money? Making more money changes people's lives. Now, we hope that it's for the better, and that's what my focus is. It changes people's lives. And so I started to think about, well, what were those changes? And some people would say, I get a good night's sleep every night. Something that seems so basic, but I can sleep every night because my company's making money. Other person would say, I'm growing my business so that I'll be able to sell it one day for a good amount of money. I knew what that was like from selling my cafe, how great that felt. And other people would think, well, if I had more money, I could buy another business. I could expand this business. I could, whatever. I could be a philanthropist. It was very interesting to me that people often wanted more money so they could give it away. So I said, okay, these are things that I like to call life-changing differences. Good night's sleep. We all like a good night's sleep. Many of us would like to be philanthropists. That changes our life, our own self-identity. So the word that came to me to represent life-changing differences is the word impact. And so I said, okay, this is my creation, my thought leadership, if you will, impact-based pricing. And the pricing is connected to the life-changing differences or the impact that the provider, the professional or business services firm, delivers to the customer. Maybe you deliver good night's sleep every single night. Maybe you deliver the ability to be a philanthropist. But those are life-changing differences, and that's the impact. So that's how I got to impact-based pricing.
Fabulous. And because of that, you have become a kind or a type of thought leader within that space, haven't you?
Yes.
Impact-based pricing. There are probably others doing it as well, but you've become known for that.
Yes.
Haven't
yes.
you? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. I guess just from that story, and thanks for sharing it, I guess that could be a pretty good lesson for anyone who's watching this podcast, this interview, because that's what they need to do, isn't it? For their business. They need to find something, a little bit of a twist from the status quo and, become the thought leader
Right.
for that thing, for that idea.
Exactly.
That's essentially what you did.
Yes. And you have to believe the person who creates this new thought has to believe it from the inside out. I didn't sit down and say, what will get me to be identified as a thought leader? I said, what do I need to do to succeed in my business and to help other people succeed that is no longer happening with value-based pricing? It turns
Absolutely.
out that impact-based pricing has been considered thought leadership, but I didn't sit down and say, I'm going to be a thought leader and guess or pretend.
Yeah.
So in my heart and soul, impact-based pricing is it. It's the only thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Your heart and soul, two
Right.
key words there. And
Right.
it sort of became your passion project, didn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I tell a quick story about how this what this means. Just to put it in context for our listeners, I work with a number of accountants who are tired of charging by the hour and looking for a way to get away from that. So we talk about impact-based pricing. And these are small, solo practitioners, or they've got two or three associates, and they tend to do a lot of tax returns. And they say to me, the first thing they say is like, well, Susan, there's no life-changing difference for a tax return. I'm going to just charge X for the work. And I said, let's stop and think about it. Think about your clients, your business owners especially. What does a tax return do for them? How does it change their life? And when they stopped to think, they said, well, number one, they're not afraid the IRS is going to be after them because their returns were filed on time and correctly, and they paid the right amount of money, which means they can go about their business, with full intention and full focus on growing their business and no fear lurking in the background. And others use their tax return as a way to learn about their business and make changes for the rest of the year. And so suddenly these accountants who thought that their tax return was a piece of paper or a digital file, so to speak, and it was just a thing they did, started to see how tax returns change people's lives. And if an accountant can change people's lives through their tax return, certainly anybody who's in any kind of professional services business can do the same. Don't you think?
Absolutely, 100%, 110%.
Okay. There you
Absolutely. I'm definitely on board with the concept.
Yeah.
No question about it. So, so other than accountants, what other types of businesses do you work with?
So I have lawyers as clients. They're an interesting group. They tend to be refugees. That's what their word is, from big law or traditionally run law firms who are sick and tired of 80-hour weeks and are justifying 6-minute charges charges for every 6 minutes to their clients. And they didn't get into the law to do that. They want to help people. So they're a very significant part of my clientele. And
Right.
then there are many people who call themselves consultants, and they have specialties. So one example is a company that helps their clients follow the rules of the State Department and the Commerce Department on what you can sell to certain countries around the world. That technology is not, you can't sell it freely to all countries in the world, but there are ways to get permission. So this sounds like it's very complicated compliance, and the rules change all the time. My client, the owner of this company, is on top of all the rules, and we say her work allows her clients to make money. So she used to talk only about the compliance and the names and the alphabet soup and all that stuff. Now she says, you just develop this technology that you want to sell, and I'm going to help you make sure that you can sell it and get the money. So she's a specialist consultant. I'm another consultant that's in the safety space, industrial safety. And he goes to big companies where, injuries are very possible, and he works with them over time, long periods of time, to avoid any, catastrophic injuries or any kind of injuries. But, so he's a safety consultant. I have another client that is, whose company works with companies that have people from all around the world, and how to blend or how to manage different cultural expectations and different habits that come from people's backgrounds. So they have techniques to help people understand that, one example is some cultures don't smile very much. And then here in the US, we're all about smiling.
Hmm.
And so don't interpret a non-smiling face the wrong way. So she's a consultant. I have a client who's an HR consultant. He's sort of a fractional HR manager. He goes around to works with different companies that need temporary or part-time human resources help, and he helps them. So, many business coaches, many
Hmm.
of the clients call themselves consultants, but they're in special, different areas.
Yeah.
I would say one thing about me. I'm a consultant. I am an expert advisor, an expert outsider, not so an expert outsider that can help any company make more money. That's what I do. That's my specialty.
Yeah. Fabulous. That's a pretty good summary. Well,
Yes.
do you you work only with businesses within the US, or do you do it?
No, no, I have a couple of clients, international clients, and I'm always open to talking with anybody.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think,
Great.
yeah, don't you think, one of the great things about LinkedIn, especially and with Zoom and the pandemic, is that people started to really be able to connect with people in like you. I would never have met you otherwise, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it really doesn't matter as long as you can communicate with them. They speak English, I assume, and we
right,
assume,
right.
and their values are sort of more or less aligned with ours. Zoom is the great connector, isn't it? We can
Yeah,
do it
yeah,
anywhere.
yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And most of your clients, do they are they referred to you, or do you use other methods to attract clients?
So, majority of my clients come to me through my own promotional efforts. Social media is particularly useful. LinkedIn, not all social media. LinkedIn is particularly helpful. Prior to the real prevalence of LinkedIn, it was more local networking, which I still do. But since people were confined to home with the pandemic, we all recognize that the technology makes anybody a neighbor, and so
Yeah,
primarily LinkedIn. I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody on LinkedIn, or they meet me through LinkedIn, or I meet them through LinkedIn, and then we talk.
yeah.
So
Do you sort of wait for them to approach you, or do sometimes you reach out, or not?
I would say it depends. More people approach me than I approach them, but sometimes I'm having a great interaction, a conversation, so to speak, on LinkedIn with someone, and then we say, well, hey, let's get on a call. Not as a selling call, but as a furthering the relationship call.
Mm.
And then over time, they may turn into a client. So
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. That's probably the best way for most people. Takes the pressure off. You don't have to be salesy and behave.
Exactly.
Uh, yeah, most people are not that way inclined anyway.
Right.
All right. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Would LinkedIn be the number one port of
Well,
call?
LinkedIn is great. LinkedIn, Susan Trivers, you can find me without
Yeah,
any trouble on LinkedIn, and I'm always happy to receive a DM.
yeah,
I have my own URL and my own website, my own domain name and my own website. So
yeah.
that's
In the
Susan
show
Trivers.
notes, all of your links will be in the show notes. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so that'll
SusanTrivers.com.
be yeah.
And
All right.
email works. So
Email as well. Your
email
email,
works.
yeah, great. But yeah, start with LinkedIn, connect with Susan, and she's a true thought leader in this area, no question about it. So that's why definitely wanted her to be a guest on this thought leadership series. So it's fantastic to have you involved, and I look forward to talking with you again, Susan. Thanks so much.